This is a church that has existed in Ukraine for 1,000 years. Presently, the Ukrainian government is engaged in a campaign of hate, slander, and defamation. Those who have looked at the facts, had the courage to interview people on the ground, and not accept the lies and deceit of the Zelensky government, have all come to the same conclusion, that the outright banning that is presently in process and that has today been advanced by a notice from Mr. Zelensky of the Religion Bureau that essentially says that after a completely fraudulent investigation, he in his wisdom, and this is an individual who has penned a book that is wildly anti-Semitic, he in his wisdom has decided, as have this group of compromised experts, that the UOC is somehow connected to the ROC, it's the Russian Orthodox Church, even after our church, the UOC, has done everything within its power to separate itself, including holding a formal session of the church shortly after the invasion to cut absolutely every tie. But this is not enough, because the motivation of the Zelensky government is to absolutely destroy any independent voice in Ukraine. They've done it with political parties. They've done it by a ruined and broken judiciary. They've done it by complete control over the police and this horrible organization called the SBU. It is the Ukraine equivalent of the old KGB, which basically runs the country with an iron fist, engaging in torture, poisonings, and assassinations, not really covered by the Western press. And in fact, that's one of the things that these little videos are meant to do, which is present something of an alternative to the false reality proclaimed by Pastor Burns and others who attend meeting after meeting in Kyiv, a city being brutally bombed by the Russian aggressor, and yet fail to attend or inquire as to the activities of the majority church of Ukraine, and indeed support Ukraine mindlessly by buying completely bogus arguments concerning allegations that the UOC are somehow working with the Russian state. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, if you wanted to argue what organization has been compromised, it is the SBU, the secret police itself, which almost completely broke during the invasion because of all of the defections that occurred, particularly in the Kiev region. And this is well documented in numerous books that cover the war. But the Zelensky government only needs to silence the last independent voice, because exactly opposite to what they say, rather than the UOC being in any way involved in or controlled by anything to do with the Russian Orthodox Church, it is their false construct, a 5-year-old church called the OCU, which is essentially part of the presidential administration. The Zelensky regime has essentially set up their own state church, and contrary to anybody's expectations at the time, have now decided to completely destroy, vandalize, and expropriate the 1,000-year-old home of Ukraine's religion. There are few words that can express my contempt for this process, particularly the fact that it is occurring in the middle of wartime. Their motivation is political and simple. They are appealing to the ultra-right part of the government and their constituency, and they're attempting to deflect from whatever has been their incompetence on the battlefield, and they have found an artificial enemy that they do, in fact, have the power to destroy, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to vent the people's frustration against this church because they're having tremendous difficulty right now, as we all are aware, on the front line. So this is what we call a scapegoat action. And unfortunately, Western pastors ignoring these ongoing violent acts against UOC churches. And now, within 2 months, we believe this ban will be finalized, and in fact, all the leases of UOC property may well be terminated. As we've said many times, if there were actually any traitors in the UOC in any form of rule of law state, one would charge them, hold proper due process hearings, and then convict those individuals. The people who have attacked this law include His Holiness the Pope, the Church of England, the representation of numerous countries at the OSCE, numerous human rights NGOs. I can go on, but none of those condemnations have impacted the American evangelical community that has gone silent with respect to the destruction of Christ's children in Ukraine. You cannot promote religious freedom and stand by while this church is destroyed and its icons desecrated. I want to leave you with the statement of the Church of England, which will be posted at the end of this video. Thank you.
Draft Law 8371 threatens Ukraine's social cohesion at a time when it needs a unified societal response to Russian aggression. It does not recognise the great lengths that the Ukrainian Orthodox Church has taken to distance itself from the Russian Orthodox Church, or the fact that many of its members serve faithfully as Ukrainian citizens in the country's armed forces, often with immense cost.